The past has a strange way of coming back, not always with warnings. Not always with noise. Sometimes it returns quietly, on silent steps that slip into the calmest of days. Disguising itself as an ordinary moment, an afternoon that seems harmless, almost forgettable. That morning felt exactly like that. The sun fell gently across the courtyard, warm but not harsh. The air carried the familiar scent of damp earth after watering, a smell that spoke of routine and safety. Little Nye's laughter echoed freely through the space, light, unguarded, and so pure it felt as though it could heal anything it touched. Diep stood nearby, watching her play. For a brief, fragile moment, she allowed herself to believe that life had finally granted her a pause. A breath between storms, a small mercy, but fate, as it so often proves, had other plans. A figure standing just a few steps away. She saw her then, motionless, still, as if she, too, was undecided, whether to step forward or disappear entirely. Something inside Diep cracked open. Time slowed. An old memory, buried by force and necessity, surged back into her consciousness with brutal clarity. She did not need an introduction. She did not need words. A single look, a barely perceptible gesture, was enough to summon the past in all its rawness. The woman standing there was not a stranger. She was someone who had shaped Diep's life through absence, an absence too deep, too formative, to ever truly forget. Diep tried to breathe normally, but her chest tightened. For a split second, instinct took over. Take Nye's hand, turn away, leave without looking back. Escape before the moment could root itself in reality. But her feet did not move. Some confrontations, she knew, arrive no matter how long we try to outrun them. The silence between the two women thickened, heavy with years of unspoken words, with grievances carefully folded away and stored in the body. And in the center of that invisible tension, Nhi watched with innocent curiosity. Unaware that she was standing dangerously close to a truth far too large for her age. Each step the woman took toward Diep reopened wounds in her mind. She relived sleepless nights filled with unanswered questions. Tears that dried on pillows without comfort. A childhood built not on explanation, but on silence. She wanted to scream, to demand why, to force answers long overdue, but above all else, she wanted to protect. Protect the little girl who smiled freely, untouched by the weight of history. The fear was no longer only about the past, it was about the secret she had guarded so carefully. The one that now threatened to shatter in front of Nye's innocent eyes, and in that moment, Diep understood something many learned too late. Not all secrets are kept out of cowardice. Some are kept out of love. Everyday life, with its comforting normality, often hides internal battles no one else can see. At some point, we all face someone who represents who we once were, or what we lost. And the real decision is not always whether to tell the truth, but when, and to whom. As the wind gently stirred the leaves and Nhi laughed without suspicion, Diep knew this encounter would change her life forever, even if no one else ever knew. The woman's presence did not fade after the first words were spoken. Instead, it grew heavier, like a shadow stretching as the sun begins to set. Diep felt the air no longer filled her lungs the same way. Every heartbeat echoed a question she had never dared to ask aloud. For Nhi, still, she remained composed. The child continued to play, collecting small stones from the ground. Unaware of the invisible trembling running through Diep's body. "You've grown," the woman finally said, her voice soft, almost afraid. That single sentence unleashed a storm. Diep clenched her fists, remembering how many years she had waited to hear anything at all, And how many times she had told herself it no longer mattered. The past does not disappear simply because we learn to survive without it. But it had always mattered. Diep responded coldly, not because she felt nothing, but because she feared that if she allowed herself to feel everything. Their conversation moved cautiously, as though both were walking across fragile ground. She would collapse. Every pause carried hidden meaning. Every word was measured. The woman attempted to justify her absence, speaking of difficult decisions. Of fear, of a life that slipped through her hands. She was not searching for excuses. Diep listened, but not entirely. Suddenly, NHI approached, tugging gently at Diep's dress. She was searching for herself. She held up a shiny stone she had found, proud of her small treasure. Diep smiled, crouched to meet her eyes, and praised her, even as the knot in her throat tightened. That child represented everything Diep had fought to protect: innocence, the possibility of a childhood free from inherited wounds. The woman watched the scene in silence, guilt and longing flickering across her face. And it was then that Diep understood: not all reunions seek repair. Some exist only to remind us of who we have become. She was no longer the child waiting for answers. She was a woman who had learned to hold her own world together, even with its cracks. When the conversation ended, there were no embraces, no promises, only a quiet farewell, heavy with unresolved emotion. The woman walked away slowly, leaving behind an echo of what might have been. Diep watched her go without tears, surprised by the strange, aching calm that settled in her chest. On the walk home, hand in hand with NHI, Diep reflected on how we all carry invisible stories through our daily lives, smiling while fighting silent battles. But we can decide how it shapes our present. We cannot always change the past. That afternoon, with slow steps and deep thoughts, Diep knew she had chosen to move forward, not through forgetting. The night fell gently over the house, as if it, too, hesitated before taking over completely. But through acceptance, Diep turned on a dim kitchen lamp while NHI settled on the floor with her toys. The ordinary sounds, dishes clinking, water running, soft footsteps, contrasted sharply with the turmoil still swirling inside her. The encounter had not ended when the woman left. It lingered in the silences, in the questions Diep refused to ask. Fragments of her childhood resurfaced, not clear memories, but sensations, a waiting that never ended. A constant absence, the early realization that love can leave without explanation. For years, she had built her strength around that void. Now, suddenly, its foundation trembled. NHI approached her naturally. "Who was the lady today?" she asked, her voice clean, without malice. Diep froze, knife suspended midair. She did not want to lie, but she did not know how to tell the truth without breaking something fragile. She knelt in front of NHI, gently stroking her hair, buying time with the gesture. "Someone I knew a long time ago," she said at last. "Sometimes people from the past return just to remind us of things." NHI nodded, as if she understood everything, and returned to her toys. Diep watched her, wondering how many truths can be postponed before they turn into lies. Later, when NHI was asleep, Diep sat alone on the edge of the bed, thinking of James, how he had learned to read her silences, how patiently he had accepted her shadows. She wondered if she was ready to share this part of her story too. She realized that love is not only offering the best of ourselves, it is daring to reveal what hurts. As dawn approached, Diep made a quiet decision. The past had not returned to demand anything from her. It had returned to offer her a chance, to close a wound without denying it, nor late apologies. She did not need complete answers. What she needed was reconciliation, with the child she once was, and the woman she had become. And before turning off the light, she thought of how many people walk through life carrying untold stories, smiling on the outside while sorting through ruins within. Life, in the end, is not about avoiding pain, but learning to look at it without fear. That night, in the silence of her room, Diep felt she had taken one more step toward that quiet courage born only when we accept our entire story, even the parts that hurt the most.